Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with a video, better late than never, right? As the pre-release is going to be Friday at midnight, so we have a day and a half before this is released. And I'm finally getting around to doing a set review, kind of my top 10 cards that I like from the set, and also talking about the overall power level of the set and just flavor of the set. And so far, I'm very impressed with the set. As far as in a limited format, it seems to be incredibly fun. Kind of disappointed there's only be 2 packs of these in the pre-release and then 1 pack in draft, because it seems to be a very, very fun set. I really absolutely love the strive mechanic, and I think it's underrated right now. I think it's going to be very powerful and limited, and just a really, really cool mechanic. I think we've seen it before. There's renaming this. Kind of Replicate did the same thing. There's been some other mechanics, but this one specifically targets creatures. So huge fan of the strive mechanic and the constellation mechanic. Well, so first of all, the strive mechanic, if you don't know already, is when we'll find a strive card here. Let's go over some of my favorite picks here. We'll do a top 10 at the end here, but like this strive one that I'm really looking forward to is this. Let's see. Let's look at this rouse the mob here. So let's pull this guy up here. This one is 1 mana to give any number of target creatures get +2/+0 and gain trample until end of turn. And then strive, you can target another creature for 3. So for 4 mana, 2 creatures get +2/+0 and gain trample. Not bad. What's so cool about this is it's pretty good. It's perfectly cost at 1 red for 1 creature, and then for 3 or for 4, excuse me, you get 2 creatures get +2/+0. So it's going to be very relevant in if you only have 1 creature, and you'll still be able to, if you have further creatures and further into the game, it kind of scales well, is what I'm trying to say, into the game, because this is really good early and really good late, and that's how the strive mechanic is. That's my at least overall view of the strive mechanic. Of course, there's some really cool ones. We'll talk about that later. A lot of cool heroic cards in the set as well. So, and a lot of really, really cool, not to mention the strive stuff, but just some really cool instances and sorceries and enchantments that actually can trigger off the heroic. So, I mean, there's like a really cool Death Touch right here. Gets +1/+3 in Death Touch, this aspect of the Gorgon. I'll zoom in here so you guys can see these cards. Cards like this are very, very fun and limited, so I'm highly looking forward to drafting with it. Got some cool cards, even like the Blade Tusk Boar, Intimidate 3/2. Those are the kind of cards I absolutely love in limited. Just evasion, you can build around them. You can kind of go a whole strategy rather than just playing good stuff. I'm not a very fan of formats that are just trying to play the best cards. I like to have a strategy in mind as I'm drafting, and this one, M13 M14 was awesome. I absolutely loved M14 in limited because you did have a game plan, but Theros Born was better, but Triple Theros kind of felt like it was more of good stuff deck, and kind of the Return to Ravnica as well. I mean, there was strategies as far as the Return to Ravnica drafts of picking colors, but it basically was, let's just try to find the most amount of good cards and put those into a deck and call it what it is. But I'm thinking that this is going to act more like M14. You're going to have a strategy, whether it be like red-white heroics or blue-white heroics or whatnot, and you try to build around it. And so there'll be a lot of combinations. So anyway, let's just talk about the gods. My initial thought of the gods. My favorite god is Keranos, god of the storms, which is this one right here. It says, as long as your devotion of blue to red is less than 7, Keranos isn't a creature. But you reveal the first card, you draw each of your turns. So each of your turns. So if you have a way to draw a card during your opponent's turn, this actually triggers off as well. And whenever you reveal a non-land card, Keranos does 3 damage to our creature player. Whenever you reveal land, you get to draw a card. So you get advantage no matter what. 5 mana is not bad for a enchantment that's an indestructible enchantment that stays out. It makes me this card feels a lot like the Assemble a Legion, as it will just grind out your opponent. And if this sticks out for a long time, you know, it's perfect in like a blue, red, white control list, as well as I think this is actually a pretty decent card in a blue, red mid range type deck. So I'm gonna definitely look forward to playing kind of a tempo I know Magic Man Sam said he doesn't think this would go great in a tempo strategy. I disagree. I think that if you have like a Cyclonic Rift type deck and a Lightning Strike type deck, you can actually use those as stall cards and removal cards, and then have Keranos be the win condition. So, and then of course that does feel more like a control, but you're going to actually be using cards like Young Pyromancer and Gutter Snipe, and it'll feel way more like a tempo deck than it would like a control deck. So Keranos is my favorite god out of them. Pharika, God of Affliction, is probably my least favorite, even though I do not believe that it is as bad as everyone makes it out to be. Let's zoom in just a little bit more. This card has got a ton of criticism. 3 mana for a 5/5. As long as your devotion to black and green is less than 7, it isn't a creature. And you could exile target creature card from a graveyard. Its owner puts a 1/1 black green enchantment creature with Death Touch onto the battlefield. So the problem with that is the owner of the card exiled gets the 1/1 token. Of course, if it didn't say that, you could actually use this as graveyard hate against your opponent. I think this card Freaka will go great in a Varl's type deck. Varl's the Unscarred from the Dragon's Maze set, which also want stuff in the graveyard. See, I don't want Freaka or Varls in a Night Howler deck or a Jared deck where you actually want cards in your graveyard. You want to utilize your graveyard as utility for either putting 1/1 tokens or scavenging. So I think Freaka and Varlos work perfectly together. Of course, Lot the Troll is still going that deck. I'm thinking more of a Jund build with Goreclan Rampager and Spike Jester is the way to go. And that way it'll be incredibly aggressive with giving value out of the stuff that you put in your graveyard through Lot the Troll and Goreclan Rampager. So definitely want to be the first decks that I'm going to build right off the bat will be a Freaka, God of the Affliction, Jund Varls type deck. So definitely looking forward to that. Athreos, God of Passage, is definitely the most highly anticipated card out of the Magic community. I love it as well. It is such a wonderful brew card, as you're going to be able to get value out of all of your... It goes perfectly in what I would consider a weenie deck. So kind of the Black-White Humans deck looks really, really good. I wish we had like a Blood Artist type card in the format right now, but we do have the Sacrifice Outlet, the Cartel Aristocrat, that will go great with Athreos, God of Passage. And when it says whenever a creature you own dies, return it to your hand unless your opponent pays 3 life. If you're in an aggro deck, your opponent is not going to be able to afford 3 life for very long. So you're going to get all of your cards basically back, all your Soldier to the Pantheons, cards like I said, like the Cartel Aristocrat sacrificing stuff to protect itself. Again, I would love to have like a Blood Artist type card, but I'm sure there's some combinations that I haven't quite figured out yet that will go great with Athreos. Of course, I'm thinking about putting it in a Mortal Servitude list. It is in those colors, and of course we can splash like red for the win condition through Purphoros. So definitely I'm going to look forward to brewing that, and again, it will be one of my first. So the gods will probably be one of my first brew. Definitely going to brew around Keranos because I absolutely love Keranos. And then the freaking Athreos seem very, very fun to brew around as well. So then we have Irios, God of Victory. Pretty straightforward card. It's going to go nicely in like a red-white aggro deck as your 4 slot. It can kind of be like the Hellrider. The only problem is if you are... going in that strategy, you want to be doing something on turn 4 with the card that you play rather than just giving your creature pseudo unblockable. The prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control is really cool as well, but Irios is one of those gods that definitely wants to become active as a 7/4. The problem with that is you have to have 7 devotion, which is going to be very hard for an aggro deck to have out because your opponents are going to be killing your cards. The prevent all damage is kind of cool because that will give you a way to attack into your opponents. Kind of feels like frontline medic, but I don't think the Irios is going to be as powerful as people think he's going to be. He's going to be another Mogus. And at first, initially, I thought Mogus was the greatest card ever, but after playing and testing Mogus, very, very slow card, and a lot of times it's very hard to actually turn Mogus into a creature. So anyway, but Mogus might actually go in the Freaka Varls deck. Again, we have to find a decent self-mill type card that we get value out of besides Lot of the Troll that then we can scavenge away. I mean, like Freaka in the graveyard is 5 counters, and Mogus would be 7 counters, so that's pretty awesome on a 4 mana casting cost scavenge ability. Anyway, we'll quit talking about Freaka and Varls. Crewfix, the Last God, actually is a pretty cool card as far as I think you would go great in kind of my unexpected results type deck. And it says if unused mana would empty from your mana pool, that mana becomes colorless instead. So basically, at the end of each turn, your opponent's turn, you tap all your lands and you have colorless mana for the next turn. You can actually then cast your crazy, crazy expensive cards like Worldspine Worm or Berigamos. And I'm definitely going to try to throw this guy in the unexpected results. So I don't really think that there's going to be many new archetypes of decks. Of course, I'll brew around a few cards here and there and try to do some fresh decks. But each one of these gods actually already fits a current deck that I played around with. So definitely looking forward to at least adding these cards to the decks that I already have brewed. So anyway, the Dictates are the next little set. Dictates are really, really, I think they're pretty sweet cards. I think they're going to be more powerful and limited than they are in Constructed, or very cool EDH cards as well, like this Dictate of Karametra. Whenever a player taps land for mana, that player adds 1 mana to his or her mana pool of any type that land can produce. The cool thing about Dictate of Karametra is it's flash, so you do it on the end of your opponent's turn, and then you get to use it first. What the problem with there's a Gruul Ancient. What is the Gruul Ancient, guys? Zerta Ancient that doubles mana and is a 7/6 creature, I believe. Anyway, that card, you cast it, and then your opponent gets the first use of it. With Dictate of Karametra, you can kind of you're going to be flashing into your opponent's end step and then getting the advantage first, and that's huge with a card like that. Dictated Twin Gods is kind of cool. It doubles damage. I don't think it will see much constructed play. It's just too late. Not very relevant for a red deck that wants to kill by turn 5. Dictate of Erebos is really, really cool, actually, as whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. What is the old card like that I'm thinking of? Grave Pact? So, and it's flash. So I really think the Dictate of Erebos actually might see some standard play. It's going to be an absolute limited bomb, and it's going to be a fun card to brew around. And then Dictate of Krufix is actually pretty cool too. Again, flash, so you do it at the end of your opponent's turn, and each player during their draw step, that player draws an additional card. You'll get to draw a card before your opponent does. But again, it is giving your opponent advantage as well. Card advantage, and they get to draw one quite quickly with Dictate of Krufix as well. I wonder if there's some sort of bounce with enchantments or flicker with enchantments that can be broken with Dictate of Krufix, but it's pretty cool. It's 3 mana though, so it's not bad. If you are playing like a control deck where you have mass removal like Supreme Verdict, a card for a card is a lot better in your advantage than it is in your opponent's, as you're going to be 2 for 1ing and 3 for 1ing a lot more than they are. So I think that this might actually go in kind of a mono blue actually might want it. I'm not sure if you want to give your opponent cards. I don't know. I could see the situational, maybe in a sideboard in mono blue Devotion, running Dictate of Krufix. And if you got to think, of course, of rotation after some cards come out, this card might actually be a lot better come rotation. So, and then Dictate of Helo, it's kind of cool because it's flash, creature control +2/+2, so you can actually use this as a combat trick for 5 mana. So the Dictates are all pretty well balanced here. My favorite one is easily Dictate of Erebos, and I think all of them will see some play, either be limited bombs or see some fringe standard play. Now, on the next little set of things is the fonts, and I absolutely love these because there's a lot of things that actually trigger when an enchantment comes into play. Constellation actually triggers when enchantment comes into play, and all of these are gaining some sort of value. Of course, my favorite one out of this is going to be Font of Fortunes, as it draws 2 cards. That's pretty cool. So you're going to get some sort of trigger off the font when it comes into play off your Constellation or, what else uses enchantments. And then you get to sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. So really, really cool interaction. If you have something that can get it back from the graveyard, that can be, I'm sure there's some maybe not infinite loots, but some very, very value-based combinations where you can actually recur it from your graveyard and keep getting 2 cards. Font of Vigor is kind of weird. It's just 7 life. It's more expensive than Font of Fortunes, and I think that 2 cards in a lot of cases is a lot more powerful than 7 life. I think that they overstep the cost on this a little bit, as 5 mana for 7 life isn't something that is too spectacular in standard right now. I mean, we have Heroes Reunion right now that's less mana than that to gain 7 life. But again, it's going to trigger Constellation. It's going to be a great card to brew around in Limited. I don't think it'll see constructed play. You might actually see it come into play, again, if hyper-aggressive decks become the format staple. And cards like Athreos and the Boros burn decks are still very real, and so Font of Vigor might actually see some sideboard play. Font of Return's kind of cool because you get three creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, so it's a 3-for-1, but you do have to spend quite a bit of mana, but at least you get that 2. Again, Constellation triggers, and then you can actually get back some cards. This is going to be a limited bomb. I'm going to go out and say it right now. It's going to be very, very huge and limited. I'm actually hoping to see this in a pre-release pack. So yeah, and then Fauna Fire is kind of cool too, but it's only damage to target player. I wish it had said target creature or player because this is quite expensive for a Lava Axe. Again, Fauna Fire is going to pay 2 and then 4, so it's 6. So I guess it's only 1 less than a Lava Axe. And it triggers, again, the Constellation or any enter the battlefield effects with enchantments. I don't know if it's quite powerful enough in a burn type strategy. I don't know if Boros Burn wants it, even though 5 damage is very relevant. We'll have to wait and see. It definitely could go in there. And in fact, if people want to go away from Boros and go into more of a Karametra type build with a burn type style, then Font of Ire actually might see some play. Again, that's not 4 mana to do 5 damage and then cast it on a turn on turn 2. That doesn't seem that bad of a trade-off for 5 damage to the face. And then Font of Fertility is kind of cool. Of course, it's the best rampant growth that we have into in the format now. We actually get a rampant growth like effect. This card will see standard play come rotation. When the fetch lands become obsolete, they become rotated out of standard, as this will be the fixture of choice. You can play it on first turn, and then second turn you can actually sacrifice it. Again, I'm sure there's going to be some broken little combos with recurring this and getting some value out of Font of Fertility. So all the fonts are awesome. I think that they are, I mean, they're commons too, so when they made these cards, they definitely thought about them being used in limited quite frequently. So, and then again, like I said, the constellations, everything are going to trigger these off. Now, I'm just going to go through some cards that I think are pretty cool. First of all, there's like the cards that do when enter the battlefield based on like islands and mountains. We have the Scourge of the Fleets, which returns a creature your opponents control with toughness X or less for the number of islands you have. We have deals damage to our creature or player with the number of mountains you have with the Spawn of Thraxus. Kind of like Spawn of Thraxus, we might actually be able to make like a dragon deck viable. I've tried a dragon deck with unexpected results, but 7 mana for possibly 7 damage when it comes into play actually isn't bad. This actually reminds me of Bogart and Hellkite. And Spawn of Thraxus might see some fringe play. You never know. I mean, it's pretty cool with like Blood Crypt, Sacred Foundries, all of these mountain / other lands that you can actually like splash a color and still be mountain heavy. Who knows? Mono Red Devotion might actually want Spawn of Thraxus because 7 mana is not hard to get, and you're gonna have tons of mountains. Of course, you're gonna have a Shrine of Nyx out and maybe some temples, so it's not going to quite do 7, but still, if it does like 5 damage, it gives you a higher curve slot that will supplement the Fanatic of Mogus. So I actually like Spawn of Thraxus, and we'll have to find the other ones. See if I can find the white, and there's the white one. No, let's see. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. This Quarry Colossus, you get to put a creature into the opponent's library just beneath the top X cards of that library. X is the number of planes you control. It's a little high cost at 7. That's quite a bit. I mean, it is removable, and it actually can hit indestructible, so you can actually put gods if they're creatures back into the opponent's library, but 7 mana is very, very high. I don't know if this will see much play, if any at all. It is uncommon, though, and so, of course, it'll be a nice little limited bomb. And let's see if I can find the green one real quick here. Let's see. All right. It's this Nessian Game Warden. And when it enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards library. X is the number of force you control. You reveal a creature card from among them and put it in your hand. Not bad at 5 mana to draw a card. And again, you can just miss with this card, but it's going to be a nice little limited bomb. Definitely a limited bomb. And it might see a little bit of standard play here and there. Actually, kind of like it in the birthing pod type deck as a 5-drop, but I'm sure the 5-drops are way more powerful. That's like Ranger, or Ranger Venus is 4, but I'm sure the 5-drop Saw is a lot better. But it'd be a really cool card to brew around, and you're going to get value out of it. You're probably going to get a card you need, revealing hopefully at least 3 or 4 cards from the top of your library, and choosing a creature that's pretty decent. I mean, you can get rid of like something that like an Elvish Mystic that you don't want anymore and actually get a more pertinent target. So, and then there's the black one that we will find real quickly here, which is, let's see. It's going to be Squelching Leeches, power and toughness equal number of swamps you control. So it's just like a nightmare type card. Definitely, I'm not the biggest fan of Squelching Leeches. I definitely won't see either much limited or constructed play because you have to be splashing colors in limited play, and it's just not going to be very valuable in my opinion at 4 mana. I mean, even if you have a mono black list, it's going to be 4 mana for a 4/4, which is good, and then later game it scales, but still, I'm not the biggest fan of it. So anyway, that's a few of the mechanics. Of course, there's tons of Constellation. Whenever it enters the battlefield, whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield, it does something like this. This Forgeborn Oreads is really cool. Enters the battlefield. It deals 1 damage to our creature or player. It's going to be awesome and limited because, again, the Forgeborn, like Constellation, 1 damage whenever an enchantment. If you can somehow bounce enchantments, or all these fonts will get a lot of value with cards like that. So definitely looking forward to that. Tons of enchant creatures in here that are kind of cool. Like these ones are kind of cool. They also have, if you enchant an enchantment creature, it gets a beneficial ability, and if it's a non-enchantment creature, it gets a negative ability. So this like Nyx Infusion, you can give one of your own creatures +2/+2, or an opposing creature that's non-enchantment -2/-2. So a lot of cool cards in here. So anyway, let's just talk about my favorite favorite cards out of here. I guess these won't be in any order of like top 10. So the cards that I really like, of course, again, the Font of Fortunes is something I'm looking forward to brewing around. And we have Athreos and Keranos. A Johnny is kind of cool, the Planeswalker. The people are really liking this guy. I like him as well. It's you gain 100 life. Who cares about ultimates? Never judge a Planeswalker based on his ultimate, but his second +1 ability, look at the top 4 cards of the library, and you may reveal a creature or an Aura, a creature, or a Planeswalker card from among them and put it into your hand. And that is just huge for a +1 ability. Of course, it will miss sometimes, but for 5 mana, that's not very hard to get out. I mean, Garruk is just 1 more mana to possibly get a ton of creatures, but a Johnny can actually get auras and planeswalkers, so you can build around it that way, and it's perfect in the green-white colors. We find they have a green-white planeswalker and whatnot. But the other cards, people have thought that Nyx Weaver would be really cool for cards like Brew Style that I have, but I don't really think that Nyx Weaver will go in the BG Dredge type deck. It's just too slow. It doesn't do much. It might actually, like the BG version might want it because it might be a good replacement for Herald of Torment. But, I mean, the exile it for 3 mana to return a card from your graveyard to hand isn't that great. Yeah, Immortal Servitude, if it was a 2-drop and cost 2 mana to do that, it'd be awesome. But as 3 mana, I don't know if I'd want Nyx Weaver in like an Immortal Servitude-like list. I just don't think it's going to be impactful enough. It's just a little too high cost to really make it worth it. And, yeah. Another one of my favorite cards is Underworld Coinsmith. Underworld Coinsmith, so whenever Underworld Coinsmith or another enchantment enters the battlefield and your controller, you gain 1 life. So it's a Soul Sister-like ability for enchantments. Of course, it's an any of the enchantment creatures will trigger this off. Any one of those fonts will trigger it off. I think it'll be great and limited. It might actually have some value in a Athreos type deck as you'll be gaining life. The problem is, though, that the opponent doesn't lose a life, too, if it did lose a life. But, I mean, you can pay a life for each opponent lose a life for 2 mana. But I think that in a deck like Atherios and Immortal Servitude, you actually want it to not gain you life, but actually do damage when it comes into play for like kind of a combo. But I definitely would be bringing Immortal Servitude based around Underworld Coinsmith and a a black-white version, 2-drop version. We probably will splash in either red or green. Green, get some cool cards with Grizzly Salvage, and also the Commune with the Gods, and as well as of course like Nyx Weaver could go in there, but you have Satyr Wayfinder that actually helps put stuff in the graveyard. So we'll see. I think this card overall, I'm going to give this at least like an 8 out of 10 for the set. I really like a lot of the cards. There isn't really any like incredibly powerful cards that I think will really warp the format or even mix it up that much. Like people have talked about Godsend being a huge equipment. I think it's very, very hard to really cast it. It's of course it's only going to go in a very heavy white deck, as it's double white in 1, and then the equip cost is 3. So getting +3/+3, and it has to become blocked or is blocked. I mean, they can just choose just to take the damage rather than block it. So it just isn't quite like most of the artifacts that the equipments that were really, really good, like the swords, were for unblocked, not really chump blocked. I mean, you can chump block this with tokens all day long, and whoop-de-doo with, I'm just not a big fan of Godsend, but I mean, really, really cool. If you haven't looked over the spoiler, check out mythicspoiler.com. This is where I'm at. I guess I should talk about my favorite card so far. I did a video for Gathering Magic, so actually go check out Gathering Magic channel for the Battlefield Thaumaturge. That's definitely my favorite card so far out of the set. Its heroic is really cool because they have hexproof. Usually with heroic cards, that's exactly what you want to do, is keep them alive. And it's a Goblin Electromancer type ability. Each instant sorcery spell that you cast that targets a creature costs 1 less. So I'm definitely looking forward to bringing on Battlefield Thaumaturge. If you haven't seen that video, definitely go check gatheringmagic.com out. I did a full review on this card. But again, very, very, very cool cards in this set. We got Prophetic Flame Speaker, which is awesome. A lot of people don't like it, but I absolutely love it. Double strike trample, and whenever you deal damage, exile the top card of your library. That's way cool. It's a Stealer of Secrets for red type of ability that can be really, really broken if you give it more damage. I mean, Double Strike is just such a cool ability. Double Strike Trample is even cooler of an ability. And then exiling the cards up off the top of your library, and then you can play them, is really, really awesome to get lands off the top. I mean, it's going to hopefully be doing 2 damage to the opponent. I mean, just keep this guy alive and you get crazy card advantage. I absolutely love it. So Master Feast is another cool card. Just tons of cool cards. So definitely go check this set out. I'll be doing some live video recordings for the pre-release, so definitely look forward to that. Also, I'm going to be doing a few more videos. Again, I apologize for the quality of this. I've been absent for probably the last 2 weeks. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to do some videos on why I was gone. I had like GP Phoenix, I had Comic-Con, and I had some personal stuff going on in my life that has kind of kept me away from doing Magic videos. But I'm going to try to actually come back with a bang and do a lot of cool videos, fresh videos for Journey to the Next. I appreciate all of the support that Rogue Deck Builder has had in the past couple of weeks. Big shout out to all the guys helping me, like Michael and Chuck, for keeping the Rogue Deck Builder brand alive while I've been absent. And again, I'll talk about that. I definitely need to make some changes in my life so I can avoid these. I get really burned out with Magic, and then it's really hard for me to actually make creative videos when I'm burned out and don't even want to look at the game. Again, GP Phoenix took a lot out of me, and then Comic-Con, where the past few weeks of my life have been dedicated toward Magic. This past year has been really dedicated toward Magic, and sometimes you just get so burned out, kind of having those, what the hell moments that, why am I spending so much time dedicated to a card game? But I really, I definitely want to make Rogue Deck Builder into a great community and into a brand, and hopefully be able to do this full time. And, it's a game that I love and enjoy, and I just need to revitalize my love for that game every once in a while. I think I'm going to give competitive Magic a break for a while. Like I said, GP Phoenix and all the PTQs was really, really tasking, and sometimes even though I did well at my last PTQ and at GP Phoenix, I did very well. No top finishes, but very close to some top finishes. but it's just those yeah, when you dedicate weekends to play a card game, and then it's just very grueling and whatnot, you can get burned out. So anyway, I'm gonna try to switch it up and be talking about some other topics. I think I'm going to start another channel that will focus on more of my personal life, and just, I like doing videos, and even though if I get burned out of Magic, I want to still create videos. So I appreciate all the support. Hope you enjoyed this little very half-assed thrown together spoiler review. There are so many cool cards from Journey to Nyx. I'd like to know your guys' comments on what your favorite card is. Again, my favorite card is definitely that Battlefield Thaumaturge, and I think there's some really, really sweet cards that aren't like overpowered or broken, which is exactly what I want to see from a set. I'm not a fan of really, really broken cards. I don't know why Wizards continues to like Voice Resurgence cards that I know that they need them for past formats. Like Voice was probably printed more for Legacy and Modern, but when they print like these completely broken cards, like too valuable, too easy to determine their power level of a 5 out of 5, that's when I like to be able to be creative, like let the most creative person win type field, where you have to be creative with bad cards or subpar cards to actually make decent decks. I mean, I didn't really like the Zednikar block just because of how powerful it was and just the obvious choices for what cards to play. And I think we were spoiled during the Theros, or the Return to Ravnica and Innistrad days. I think that the format was wide open for a ton of different decks. And Thragtusk was a little oppressive and was one of those cards that I do not enjoy in a format, because it's just too powerful and too much of a duh card. It's an auto-include in most decks that run green. But I think the Innistrad had some really, really sweet cards to brew around. And so far in Theros, and Return to Ravnica has a lot of great, just solid cards. And between Return to Ravnica and Theros, so Standard has kind of been a little bit of a dull format where you're just playing the best cards possible in the colors you're playing. Anyway, so I'm hoping that Journey to Nyx and M15 actually switch things up, and then I'm really looking forward to rotation and brewing with some of these cards that haven't really seen the play that I think they deserve. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.